We're going to try something new with today's lesson. I record all my videos usually sitting in my trusty chair. But that's a good way to die and have heart disease and shit. I don't want to do that. I don't want to just sit in my chair and slowly rot. So today, we are trying something different. I am recording the video from my treadmill. And I have to keep my spray bottle in the air because my cat's being a shit. But that's okay. Well, he went upstairs. No, not yet. He's still being an asshole. Alright. So epistemology. We're still on epistemology, right? Last time, we talked about true belief. And how true belief is not sufficient for knowledge. Because we also need something else, justification. But I left you hanging. It was a cliffhanger. I said, justification? What's that? People are going to argue. Well, now I'm going to start filling you in. Aren't you thrilled? Alright. Here's the deal. True belief. A belief, remember, is a state of mind. And the truth of a belief is a description of how well it corresponds to external reality. Even that is something philosophers argue with, but good Lord, we gotta leave something off the table, right? We gotta set something aside and say, let's just go with that for now. And that's one of the things we're going with for now. So, okay. A belief is true when it corresponds to external reality, right? Awesome. Very cool. Like, if I have a belief that my car is black, and my car actually is black, my belief is true. Fantabulous. The reason why true belief is not sufficient for knowledge, though, is that I can generate all the beliefs I want. Right? I don't have to wait for something to happen for a belief to pop into my head. I can just choose. I can formulate a belief in my head. I can formulate a mental state. I can go, my car is pink. My car is green. My car is orange. And eventually I would be right, you know. Well, let's change it to your car. Right? If I think, your car is pink. And if you have a car, and it is pink, I have a true belief. But so what? I can like go look at your car and go, it's pink. That car is pink. I'm just running through the colors. A second ago I thought, your car is green. Your car is blue. Your car is yellow. I don't know why my belief mechanism has that voice. By the way, it just does. So we're going to go with it. Anyway. I just realized that my incline wasn't going to set properly, so we're going to have to change that. There we go. Alright. Okay. I was thinking this wasn't feeling like a workout. Alright. True belief is not sufficient for knowledge. I guess you can call it guessing if you want. Fine. And guessing isn't knowing things. This is why we care about justification. If we care about knowledge at all, and I think we can agree that we do, I think Zagzebski's piece makes the argument pretty solidly that even if knowledge isn't valuable in itself, it's valuable instrumentally for other purposes, for every purpose in life. So we care about knowledge. Well, let's just agree on that. We care about knowledge. We don't want to know about true beliefs, just pure true beliefs. We want to know about knowledge. I can guess in all day long and generate a bunch of true beliefs probably. But unless I have some reliable way of separating the beliefs I've generated that are true from the beliefs I've generated that are false, unless I have some reliable way of getting true beliefs, then who cares? Like, why the guessing is pointless. And that's where justification comes in. Why do I believe this thing is true. Okay. The reason why justification is crucial is that truth is a metaphysical concept. It's slippery. Truth is elusive. Now, some of you may be like, "What? How the heck is truth elusive?" Right? I'm sitting here telling you that it's hard to know whether a belief is true. And you're thinking like, well, how about this belief? I have hands. Pow! Right? Pow! How are you going to tell me that I don't have any access to the truth of the belief of I have hands? Descartes is going to complicate that, though. Descartes is going to say, and if you've done the Descartes reading, you will know. He's going to say, no, you don't. Philosophy. He probably didn't say it like that. He'd probably say it in French. I entertain myself far too much. Anyway, sorry, it's fine. Truth itself is elusive in many ways. I mean, with simple empirical beliefs, it seems like we have the ability to access the truth or falsity of those beliefs. It seems like it. But with other beliefs, it can get really complicated really quick. Like, for instance, I mean, just think about this one. Ask somebody, do you like potato chips? Formulate a belief based on their answer. They say, yes. You formulate a belief. They like potato chips. Do you actually know whether the belief is true? How will you access directly the truth of that belief? Well, to directly access the truth of that belief, you have to literally be in their head. You have to be in their head feeling what they feel about potato chips. You have to experience their like or dislike of it. And obviously that's impossible unless you're Professor X. And I'm clearly not Professor X. Look at the hair, man. So we can't get direct access to that. So what do? We don't have direct access to the question, due to the truth or falsity of the belief. Does Jimmy Joe Bob like potato chips? So what do? We look for signs, right? How does Jimmy Joe Bob behave around potato chips? Does he rush toward them screaming, potato chips! And rip the bags open and hurl himself onto a pile of them? Admittedly, that would be extreme. Does he cram his face with potato chips? Does he know everywhere in the greater Tulsa area where he can obtain the kind of potato chips that he prefers? If so, I would say, Jimmy Joe Bob likes potato chips. I think the belief I have that Jimmy Joe Bob likes potato chips is true. But notice I'm not directly accessing the truth or falsity of the belief. I am looking for signs that the belief is true or false. I am looking for whether or not my belief in the truth of that, or whether or not my confidence in the truth of that belief is, magic word, justified. I should edit that later and add like a little sparkle effect and like a harp sound there, right? Justified. Whatever. I feel like SpongeBob. Justification. Okay. The point is, justification, therefore, consists of a reason to think that the belief is true. Okay. And in that sense, the most important element of justification, any story about justification, any theory of justification, is that it must explain which beliefs are truth-tracking. Okay. Truth-tracking engaged. I don't know. That's my brain. What does that mean? Truth-tracking. All right. Imagine you have a clock, as I do. I don't know why I get that voice. Imagine you have a clock, and it says 6:41, as it does now. Imagine you have a clock that says 6:41. But it always says 6:41. Now, yes, we are about to embark upon that old cliche, even a stop clock is right twice a day. Imagine I'm at your house, and I don't know that the clock doesn't work. And I glance over at it, thinking, what time is it? And I get my information, and I form a belief about what time it is based on that stupid clock. I look at the clock, and I go, oh, now I have a belief. My belief is it's 6:41. Now, obviously, if it is 6:41, that belief will be true, yes? But what if it weren't 6:41? Would the clock say 6:41, or would it say the accurate time? Well, in this example, the clock is broken, and it says 6:41 no matter what. So the clock is not truth tracking, which is to say that the source of information, the source of the belief, does not change to accommodate changed circumstances in the counterfactual. Counterfactual is just a fancy philosophy word for what if things were different. If it weren't 6:41, what would the clock say? Would it say 6:41, or would it say something else? Would it say the correct time? In the counterfactual case where it isn't 6:41, the clock still says 6:41. So the clock is not truth tracking. The clock, as a source of information, as a source of belief, does not track the truth. Okay. So justification must tell a story about what sources of belief, what methods of forming beliefs are truth tracking. Let me give you another example that will lead us directly. Here's the deal. We tend to believe that we tend to think that we're justified, or that the deliverance of our senses is justified. That is to say, that we think that if I form a belief, I have hands, based on my proprioceptive sense, and my tactile sense, and my visual sense. If I form a belief that I have hands based on all those things, then it's justified. Because if I, in fact, did not have hands, my senses would inform me of that, right? If I had no hands, and I held up my arm, and I looked at it, I would not see a hand. That is to say, my senses are truth-tracking sources of belief, which means they are justified, which means that I can get knowledge from them. I can have a belief, that belief can be true, and I have the belief is true in virtue of a justified mechanic of gaining beliefs that would have changed to track the truth if the truth had been different. So I would know that I had no hands. Okay, that's the theory. But there are lots of questions about what sources of belief are justified and what sources of belief aren't justified. That is where the meat and bone of epistemology, for the most part, is found. Belief and truth is also, that verges into more general metaphysics, and belief verges into philosophy of mind. Justification is really where epistemology's heart is, arguing over what kinds of things are justified and what kinds of things aren't. Okay, so, segue transition, wipe screen, whatever you want to do, Descartes. Descartes, French philosopher, 16th century, Descartes was concerned with this. He was like, what kinds of beliefs are justified? I don't want to just deal with knowledge. I don't want to just deal with true belief. I want to know what I know. I want to know how I know things. Cool. And so he's like, how do I figure out which beliefs are justified and which beliefs aren't? Well, his method was what he called the method of doubt, where he starts off by putting aside everything. He says, look, I'm going to take everything that I could possibly have a belief about and put it into doubt. I'm going to say, is it true? And then I'm going to try and figure out how I know it's true or why I think it's true. And when I run out of steam on that, when I hit the wall on my project of justification, I will have reached the limits of knowledge. I will be able to separate this stuff over here is just fine, this stuff over here isn't. Okay. So, let's talk a little bit about the kind of, well, we'll get with that another time. So Descartes starts, and he wasn't kidding when he said everything he's going to put into doubt. Because he starts with even the most basic belief, which is not, do I have hands, but do I even exist? Do I exist? Shit, man. That's philosophical. Philosophy. Do I exist? How would I know if I existed? Well, this is where we get that famous saying from Descartes. I think, therefore I am. It's not a self-help mantra. I've seen people get this one wrong, right? It's absurd. They get this idea, oh, I think, therefore I am. I have to think big thoughts to be alive. No! That's not what he meant at all. God, shut up and read a book. What Descartes meant was that if I don't exist, then who's wondering whether he exists? Pow! Philosophy. Right? Oh. That was his argument, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? If I am sitting here thinking, do I exist? And again, I'm sure he said it just like that, except in French. Do I exist? Then your immediate next question is, well, if I don't, who is thinking that? So he figures, if I am thinking anything, if I am having if there are any kind of thoughts going on here, then I must exist. Right? Something has to exist to be thinking those thoughts. And that thing is me. I'm sitting here wondering if I exist, so I know I do. Alright. You know what? I'll give him that one. That one is inescapable. He claims that it's justified because it has to be justified. There's literally no way for it to not be true. Right? If you're thinking something, anything, then you exist. And that's just a definitional truth. It has to do with what it means to think and what it means to exist. It's literally impossible that you could have a thought without you existing. Okay. So he goes, all right. That's something I know. I have justification for the belief that I exist, that I think, therefore I am. That's a belief that I know must be true because it has to be true. Boom. He liked that bit. He liked that bit about stuff that has to be true. Oh, all right, man. So he's like, all right, let's think about this. What are some other things that have to be true? Because I know I'm justified with those, right? If they have to be true, then if you believe them, you know that they are true. Boom. So he says, how about this? How about stuff like 2 + 2 = 4? And you're saying to me, Professor, how is that the case that that has to be true? And I'm telling you that it does by virtue of definition. And you're like, well, what if you're using binary numbers? And I'm like, well, first of all, there's no 2 or 4 in binary, so shut up. But my point is, it has to be true just based on the definitions of what those symbols mean. What 2 and plus and equals and 4 means that 2 plus 2 equals 4 is true. It's kind of like saying a bachelor is an unmarried male. In English, a bachelor is an unmarried male. That belief is true. And that belief is true by definition. It has to be true because of what all the words that I just used mean. 2 plus 2 equals 4 and all other mathematical truths are similar. Okay. So, Descartes is now like, all right. I've got all mathematical truths. All mathematical truths and all things that are true by definition. Now, like a bachelor is an unmarried male, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff like that. All that is definitely true. It is certainly true. It is undoubtedly true because it's true by definition. So I can have justified belief in those things. He's like, all right, I'm knowing more stuff. I started out just knowing that I exist, and now I'm knowing more things. All right, cool. He says, what else can I know for certain? He said, well, how about deductive arguments? Right? Remember deductive arguments. Remember the chapter in the beginning where we did what is philosophy? We talked about types of arguments. Deductive arguments are a form of logical argument, just to remind you, because I know you all get the reading. Deductive arguments are a form of argument wherein, if the premises are true and they are arranged in a proper logical order, then the conclusion has to be true. Okay? Like, for instance, a bachelor is an unmarried male. That is true by definition, so we know that premise is true. An unmarried male has no wife. That's true by definition because of the meanings of all the words involved. A bachelor has no wife. That's a deductive argument. The conclusion is definitely true because of the meanings of all the words involved and the law of the excluded middle. Okay, fine. So Descartes is really getting excited. He's like, okay, I know I exist. I know that all mathematical truths and truths by definition exist. And now, any deductive argument I can make based on a mathematical truth, a truth by definition, or the knowledge that I exist, will also be true. Man, I know all kinds of cool stuff. And then we say, do you know where your car keys are? And he's like, sad trombone. Right? Why? Well, here's the problem. Descartes turns to the next bit. And if you did the reading, excuse me, that's funny. If you did the reading, you'll know that he's very skeptical about the reliability of our senses. He's very skeptical about the ability of our senses to provide justification. That is, to reliably track the truth. Or at least for us to know they reliably track the truth. Just based on an analysis of how they operate. He says, look, man, think about it. Think about it, man. This is where it gets really silly in a way, but really profound in another way. So he says, think about it, man. You had dreams that felt completely real. Like, you know, that dream that you were a king and you were like ruling over some sort of small tropical country, and then you woke up and you're here. And you're like, ah, poop. I'm not a king. They felt so real. And Descartes' like, that's scary, right? Because a dream, something that isn't true, can feel completely real. if your mind is in the right state, or the wrong state, you might say. It can feel completely real. He says, how do you know? Haven't you ever had a dream about waking up and it felt real? And you were like, oh, I woke up. And then later you actually wake up? He says, man, how do you know that you aren't really a king of a small tropical country and that this is the dream? Right? What if you're falling? Or what if you were the king of a small tropical country and you were assassinated and someone has killed you or has shot you fatally, and in the last few dying moments, the neurons firing in your brain, you created this elaborate fantasy of being a community college student in Tulsa. Right? That could be the case. And to move away from the really absurd examples, he said, how about the simple ones? Like where you put on a shirt and your shirt's black and you go out into the daylight and it's blue. It's blue all along. Simple change in lighting revealed that your senses were wrong and misled you. Descartes says our senses mislead us all the time. They are not reliable in themselves. He says they don't track the truth very accurately. He says, so I can't, in good faith, say that any belief based on my senses is justified. That's some heavy shit. That is a radical kind of skepticism, and it is in fact named after him. It's what we call Cartesian skepticism, a sort of global doubt about almost everything that requires strict conditions of justification. Okay, so how do we get out of this? Well, there's a difference. We should make a distinction between how we get out of it and how Descartes got out of it. Descartes' next move is questionable to a lot of people in the modern era, and even to a lot of people back in the 16th century when he was writing, it was questionable. People argued with him about it. But his next move was to say that God, the Christian God specifically, God exists, is a belief that is true by definition. Huh? Basically, he's repurposing an old medieval argument from Anselm, which says that God is perfect. The short version of it is that the Christian God is perfect, and that if something didn't exist, it wouldn't be perfect, therefore it must exist. Does that sound like horse hockey to you? It's because it is. It's a stupid argument. And Anselm had many critics, even at the time. But Descartes feels confident. He's feeling confident about this, so he polishes off the old ontological argument, as it's called. And he says, God exists is true by definition. All right, Descartes, you do you. But let's give him that one for just a moment and see what he does with it. Well, what he does with it, he says God exists is true by definition. So God exists. And God has all the attributes of God, of the Christian God specifically, which means he's benevolent, and that he created humans, and that he created the world, and so on and so forth. And Descartes says, well, a benevolent God would not give us senses to navigate the world if they weren't at least mostly reliable. Like, if I just look at how my senses operate on their own, I begin to wildly distrust them. He says, but if I look at how the operation of my senses is kind of backstopped by a promise of benevolence from God, then I'm like, all right, even though they jack with me about the color of the shirt I'm wearing, and I sometimes have weird dreams that are super realistic, I guess I can trust my senses for the most part. That's where he went with that. He was trying to buy back our feeling of justification in relying on our senses. But nonetheless, he only thought that the senses were justified in sort of a second-hand fashion through a process of justifying, or a process of relying on things that were justified by definition. Now, That is called rationalism. Descartes founded, inadvertently, this school of thought in epistemology called rationalism. And the rationalists think that the only truly justified, that we can only really be confident in the truth of things that are true by definition, or what we would call in philosophy, analytically true. So, Descartes says, I know that I exist, that's true by definition, it's analytically true. Mathematical truths, analytically true. Definitional truths, analytically true. And anything I can derive from, in a deductive fashion, anything I can derive from mathematical or definitional truths is certainly true. And Descartes thought we could derive a lot of stuff because he put the whole God thing in there. Like God exists, according to him, is a definitional truth. And from that, you can get all kinds of stuff. But it was all only justified because it was definitely 100% true by definition. It was analytically true. That's what the rationalists thought. The problem, of course, is how much weight they put on that one little proposition, in Descartes' case, that the Christian God exists. That one proposition, that one definitional truth, that gets them out of their head and into the rest of the world. That gets them all sorts of things like, where are my car keys and stuff like that, right? Because my car keys are on the counter is not a definitional truth. They could have been elsewhere, right? It's not a mathematical truth. It is true by definition, I guess, that my senses tell me my car keys are on the counter. And then, that's true by definition. That's sort of like saying, how do I know when I'm angry? Well, it's when I feel angry, right? How do I know when I see my car keys on the counter? Well, it's when I have the visual experience of car keys on the counter. So I'm having the visual experience of car keys on the counter, true by definition. And then Descartes dips into that well of God exists, God is benevolent, God wouldn't let let my senses deceive me in a radical fashion. And then from there, it's deductively true that my car keys are on the counter. But notice how much weight is being carried by the whole God argument, by the whole claim that God exists, and the Christian God specifically, an all-powerful, all-benevolent, all-knowing God. Notice how much weight is being carried by that specific part of the deductive argument. Well, obviously, that's where anyone that disagrees with Descartes is going to hammer them. And they did. But lots of other rationalists came after Descartes. And their big project was to try to show some version of that God argument. Maybe not that one exactly. By the time you get to people like Spinoza and Leibniz, they're not looking very much like the Christian God. But they're still proposing that it is true by definition that some sort of thing exists that will get us out of just mathematical and definitional truths and into the world of knowing things that are empirical. Okay. Rationalism. How well did it succeed? I don't know. And a lot of you may be thinking, I'm not sure why are we even studying this? But there is something seductive about rationalism, and I know some people who are very into rationalism. Because the idea is that there's no probability there, right? Rationalist knowledge is certain knowledge. Because that's their whole thing. That you're only justified when you know for sure. Descartes was like, if there's any room for doubt, really, it's not justified. And some people like that. The problem is, it was really hard to construct a theory of justification that could get going, that could get you out of your head, right? Rationalists kept running into this wall where the most that you would wind up knowing is mathematical truths and things that are true by definition. Like you wouldn't know where your car keys were, or where you worked, or when your birthday was, or anything like that. You wouldn't know those things, according to the rationalists. And that's silly. I mean, that's just silly to say, isn't it? Because when Linda Zagzebski wrote that piece, Caring and Epistemic Demands, when she made her argument that we care about knowledge, the kind of knowledge she was talking about wasn't mathematical truths and things that are true by definition. The kind of knowledge that she was making the argument that we really cared about was empirical knowledge. When is my birthday? When is my partner's birthday? Where's my car? How do I keep these roses and or child alive? So on and so forth. Those are empirical questions. Questions that are not analytically, I think the answers to which are not analytically true or true by definition. And if the rationalists are going to insist on saying that that stuff isn't knowledge, then we're not just going to give up caring about it. We're just going to stop calling it knowledge. We're going to be like, all right, well then the thing I really care about is schmowledge, right? And the focus of epistemology is not going to stay with these stupid, boring mathematical truths and truths by definition. It's going to shift to being about schmowledge. And then epistemology will be the study of schmowledge, not knowledge. Rationalism is playing a stupid game here. If it can't devise something to explain how we know things other than just mathematical truths and truths by definition, if it can't do that, then we shouldn't care about it. Rationalism doesn't answer any questions that are interesting to us or important to us. Rationalism carried on for a little while as people gamely tried to make it work. But eventually, a new contender will enter the ring with English and Scottish philosophers, and Irish, so sort of British in general. British philosophers will enter the game in the 18th century with a new story of justification called empiricism. But that is the next video, because I've been on the treadmill now for about 40 minutes and I might die. So it's been a pleasure talking to you again. I hope this has helped you understand the Descartes readings and rationalism, and please take care of yourselves in this terrible, terrible time of pandemic. Hope you're doing well. Adios.